Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with a look at the market for the week ending Friday, May 11th, 2018. As usual, we want to look at a disclaimer. I urge you to read it and realize that this is not an attempt to give professional investment advice since I'm not a professional advisor. I'm just doing this for my edification, then sharing it with others who may care to take a look. Well, as I'm sure we all know, last week was a very nice week in the market for the bulls anyway. Um, and we see it reflected here in this weekly chart. We see that ABCD triangle, and we see a close now of this bar, last week's bar. This is a weekly chart, of course, close outside of the triangle. So that's very encouraging. It seems as though we may be going higher from here. We should be. Now, if I open the chart up a bit more, you would see that the 4 EMA, that yellow line, also crossed above the 9 EMA. And as we were seeing now for a couple of weeks, these moving averages have been very close to each other. But now we're getting a break. We're getting a break above one above the other. And that's very encouraging. Remember, we had these hammers here hammering out a bottom. Okay? And that's where we stand. Now, the parabolic is still above the most recent bar, which is last week's, of course. So we have a little work to do to get a little more conviction that this trend is going to continue much higher. There are those who predict that that we're gonna meet some resistance here and begin to correct again, but I'm not seeing that in charts here at all. If we look at the MACD indicator, the histogram, you can see it continued to trend up from below the zero line. If you read any of Alex's books, you realize that he points out that one of the best times to be buying stock is when the MACD indicator, the histogram, is trending up from below the zero line. Now, when we look at these other three indicators, I've been waiting for this to cross above the critical points here. For example, the Williams percentile with a 30 period just crossed above last week, crossed above the 50% line. That's very nice. And the sum of the rate of change indicator, since it fell below in March, below the 4% line, is once again above the 4% line. So this all shapes up to be very bullish signals. Let me show you something else. I've shown you the Ichimoku charts, sorry, in the past. And here's a daily. Actually, let's look at a weekly. The weekly chart of the S&P has been above the cloud, even during this correction here. And the daily chart, the daily price, has been below, or one might say, in a cloud. And now it's broken above the cloud, and that's quite bullish too. So let's pause here. Now we turn to a daily chart of the S&P, and again you have that ABCD triangle, and we can see clearly here that on Thursday and Friday, both of these days, it closed above the upper line of the triangle. So it broke through some resistance that existed here. The other thing to notice is that the 4 EMA, the 9 EMA, and the 30 weighted moving average are now one above the other, starting with a shorter term. And as one technical analyst calls it, he calls this widening here the mouth of the alligator. It's ready to feed. So that's an interesting term. Now notice too that the Bollinger Bands came into a squeeze here. They were very narrow, very close to each other. And the Bollinger Bands and the price actually rode up the upper Bollinger Band for a couple of days. Well, just Thursday and Friday especially. So we'll see if that continues. Parabolic drop below the most recent bars, so that's pretty bullish. It says we now have a nice uptrend. And if we look at some of these other indicators down here, MACD in bullish territory, RSI 12 is trending up, and this Williams is trending up per centaur, and also some of the rate of change is also trending up above the 4% line. So all in all, the bulls are in charge. Now there's that time of the year, we're in May, and so many people will say sell in May and go away. And there is a good statistic that supports that notion. Market tends to do best between October and May and then take sort of flat lines from there, but not every year. I suspect that this year we're going to go higher in May, and we're going to have a good summer as well. So right now on this 1 year chart, we can see that the level that it's at now is 26%, and we have a long way to go to get to 90% when it becomes oversold, as it did here and here, and of course very oversold in this region. So just wanted to show you that one. Let's go on to some individual stocks. So just before we get to the individual stocks, I thought I'd show you a few of these stockcharts.com charts. Remember, we saw this chart before. This is the new high, new low spread, and you can see that now the difference between new highs and new lows is now crossing above the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. The 50 and the 200-day moving average. So that's quite bullish. And as Alex would say, this is a leading indicator. And here's the chart with the S&P showing Alex's impulse indicator, and we saw that we had this harami, bullish harami. We saw that before, and then we had these green bars telling us it's okay to buy. We're not allowed to sell this thing short. So now we'll take a look at some stocks that I have listed on that main watch list that I sent out to you somewhere earlier in the month. The first one is EXPD. I'll do as many as I can with the time we have left. The first one is EXPD, and you can see how it's been riding that upper Bollinger Band, and all the other indicators here are looking very positive. But if I want to buy this, I gotta wait for a little pullback. The alligator mouth is wide open, but it's more risky to buy it up here, of course. Okay, so let's look at something else. Here's a daily chart of Etsy. We'll look at all the daily charts. Etsy had a nice move up here. I owned it for a while in here, and then when it hit the upper Bollinger Band, I sold it for a nice little gain. Let's take a look at another one. Here's the next one on the list. It's EPAM, EPAM Systems, Information Tech Systems, and it has a nice run, very similar to some of the other, like Expeditors. It's riding the upper Bollinger Band, and it's way outside the Bollinger Band. So expect a pullback here. In fact, we're getting somewhat of a shooting star. So we can expect a pullback, and it may be one to buy on a pullback. Let's see another one. Here's a REIT it's a healthcare facilities REIT, and you can see it has a nice uptrend. So this is something that it broke above the 200-day moving average. So it may be worth a shot. It's only a $20 stock. I'll skip over a few that haven't done well, like INFN and ETP, and then we go to Ring Central. This company has had a nice little uptrend here, but then you see it closed completely above the upper Bollinger Band and had this shooting star, which I sometimes call the finger. So you get the finger, you want to be cautious here, and then of course on Friday you gave back a bit here. Here's that great stock NVIDIA, had a nice rally here going into earnings. Declared pretty good earnings, but see, it was riding that upper Bollinger Band, and you could expect at some point to have a pullback from the upper Bollinger Band. So it may be coming into more of a value area here between the 9 and the 30, and that would be a good place to buy Nvidia if we don't have it, you know. Here's CRISPR. We talked about this a number of times. I love it. I love the company. The technology is just mind blowing, and it's working its way back up again. Although it did have, you see, it hit the upper Bollinger Band here and pull all the way back down to the lower line of the triangle, and seems to be working its way back up. It was up. It was up about to $1.70 yesterday, and then it pulled back, and it ended up being up about 61 cents, which is a nice move for this stock. I'm holding it. And here's a chart of E+. It's a nice looking daily chart, but again, riding the upper Bollinger Band, coming out of a squeeze here, sort of a squeeze. And it looks like a very nice uptrend. And these indicators, look at how they're trending up. So I think this is one to keep an eye on. I don't own it. Here's a chart of Workday. I don't own it, but I did own it sometime in the past. It seemed to be coming out of a correction here and trending up again, although after hitting the Bollinger Band, it corrected a bit on Friday. But this is quite a good company with cloud technology or whatever. Here's a daily of chart of Adobe, one of my biggest holdings right now, because I have such a nice gain in it. And it's been trending up nicely, but suspect that it's going to consolidate this gain here and give us and pause here at this level. Here's Microsoft. I do own this one. It broke out of a triangle here, and it's gradually making its way up, hit the upper Bollinger Band, so we pulled back a little bit here on Friday, but nothing much to talk about. And it seems as though we have somewhat of a squeeze here. It may be riding the upper Bollinger Band from here. Here's a daily chart of Union Pacific, a railroad, of course, and it's broken out of the triangle. This line here is the upper line of the triangle. Broken out. I don't have it, but it looks like a very good thing to keep an eye on if the transports continue to do well, as I think they are. And you can see these indicators are nicely positioned here. Here's Visa. Not much to say about this. I just love it. I hold it. I've added to it recently, and I just love the chart. It has a beautiful weekly chart as well. Check it out. It's a beautiful weekly chart. Broke out of a triangle. It hit a target of 129.93 based on this triangle. And I have to see now what sort of target I can assess on that. Here's MasterCard, very similar to Visa. Payment systems doing well, and there are good reasons for that. You know, people are buying things on the internet. What are they going to use? They can't use cash. So these payment systems are doing well. Visa, MasterCard, Green Dot, and PayPal, you know, they're all doing very well. Here's Align Technology. This is one that I used to own. You know, I've traded it in the past, and now it's making new highs, but it's hitting the upper Bollinger Band. I think they obviously came out with good earnings, and I would look to buy it if it on any pullback here. I would look to buy it again, okay, or play some options on it. Here's an old horse, Intel. We made a lot of money in the 80s and 90s with Intel. But right now it started a nice uptrend here on a weekly chart. I like it. And when I look at these indicators here, they look pretty good. Barron's this weekend mentioned a couple of stocks, and one of them was BHP Billiton, which is Australian company, you know. But look at this, nice move here. They're in the basic materials and mining area, you know, oil and gas as well. So we might want to keep an eye on this because buying it at a pullback would be more judicious here. Just a quick look at Apple. You can see that it's been trending up nicely here. I own it and made some nice money with it already. And that's it, folks. That's all the time we have. Have a great weekend and in fact, create one for yourself. We'll try and do this again next week.